Hey, Miguel Iturrate back here for the Cage Rage podcast, and I want to jump on here and do a little bit on this weekend, March 16th at Dallas Cowboys Stadium. We're going to get the big welterweight showdown. Mikey Garcia challenging Errol Spence Jr. for the IBF World title in the welterweight division, 147 pounds. There's been a lot of news, a lot of talk. The fight's been around for a long time. It's been on the books for a few months. Both fighters have undergone full training camps. Spence, an elite athlete, an elite guy in training and things like that. He's fighting at home, so you expect that he's going to come in at his best. Now, that's not really the question here. The thing that a lot of people are looking at is what's Mikey Garcia going to come in at? Because Garcia, since he announced that he was thinking about challenging Errol Spence, everybody's like, that's not a good idea. He's much bigger than you. Don't worry. There are other challenges. Lomachenko is, almost an equal challenge in terms of how it'll be perceived. Why would you go up 2 weight classes to fight Errol Spence? Garcia stuck kind of by it. Kept calling Spence out. Spence, had elevated his name. He's becoming a top 10 pound for pound guy. So, Spence he's a quiet guy too. So Spence kept going, Mikey Garcia really wants to fight me. The contract comes his way. It's like, I agree with Spence. Spence has been like, hey, I'm getting called out here. This is crazy. I got, you answer that challenge. I'm going to go kill this guy. And he doesn't say kill, but, Spence is a nice guy. But that's the bottom line is, so he took the fight. He stood up to the challenge. But there's Garcia coming up 2 weight classes with the challenge. Now, none of the stuff I'm going to say right now about Victor Conte and the preparation Garcia's undergone is exactly brand new news. But let's start putting together some pieces and some things, because I think in the long run, this might be a good prototype. Garcia here may be a good prototype for the future of nutrition and combat sports, and even what we call the PED issue here, because Garcia's a guy that, first of all, let's take interest in the drug testing. They're doing the VADA testing for this fight. And, VADA, as they say, is the state of the art. I'm not sure, I think the cheaters are the state of the art. That's the bottom line with the way the PED thing is VADA's got their set of rules. They're public. The cheaters look at that and say, this is how we work around it. And it's been like that forever. And it'll continue to be that way. But VADA is the best testing around, and they're going to do VADA testing here. Mikey Garcia has been associated with Victor Conte for a few years now, but this is the first time he actually took his training camp out to the facilities in California, the SNAC facilities, and SNAC, I'm looking up exactly. I don't want to garble what a SNAC is here, but it's Sports Nutrition and SNAC. Why are you not taking me there anymore? Okay, well, it doesn't really matter. Sports Nutrition. Victor Conte, for those who don't know, is the guy from the Balco labs. The Balco labs are the labs from the baseball scandals, where they were giving baseball players the clear and the cream, including, potentially Barry Bonds and things. There was a list. Victor Conte's done jail time, I believe, and he's paid for that. So I'm not here to say that he's juicing up Mikey Garcia at all, but here's the deal is Victor Conte is a scientist. He's a genius type dude who was one of the guys working around. And this kind of reminds me of like the old, cliches about hackers or about, other types of criminals where if you can't beat them, join them. The government kind of hires you and now you work on their computer systems kind of thing. I think the same thing has happened with Victor Conte. He was a guy who understood the system and used the baseball scandal, to make money and stuff, but to refine the techniques that were going on there, So, in other words, now when he goes in and he knows what the law is, he can keep you within the law, So having Victor Conte as an assistant or as a advisor, in this case, Mikey Garcia, I believe, has hired him as a strength and conditioning coach. So this goes a little, and Conte, to his credit, like I said, he's clean now is what everybody tells you. So by hiring him, you go to him and you get legal and correct advice and stuff. So what's Garcia undergone here? So, for example, you always hear in boxing that you know, they go to Big Bear or they look for, you know, work at altitude. I believe Terrence Crawford goes to Colorado, and you know, altitude work is not a new mystery here. But at times, you know, you might be a California-based fighter who has to go to the mountains, and now, you know, it's 40 degrees at night, and you're breathing, your way of having to dress and things, and, you know, you could catch a cold, your defenses and stuff. So going to the mountains and spending a few times there is not optimal. Now, Victor Conte comes along, and now you have a facility, a gym, where you can go to, and he has a mask that you can train with the mask on, and Garcia does his bag work with it. And the mask will regulate how much oxygen you're getting. So, in other words, if you want to simulate, hey, Garcia, you're boxing now at 20,000 feet, and you're getting 10% oxygen compared to 20% or whatever it is you need in real life, go. And the mask takes away the oxygen. It's, you know, but at the same time, he's not having to travel. He's not having to experience life in the mountains and things like that. So, you know, there's just one advantage. That's not even nutrition and stuff. That's the other type of help a guy like Victor Conte brings. So Victor Conte is the cutting edge and top-notch guy. At one point, with the Balco stuff, involved in the real, you know, the cutting edge on the cheating side, and now he helps the fighters to make sure that they're going to pass VADA testing. He doesn't hire or allow a fighter to hire him unless they are signed up for VADA testing and stuff. So Garcia, I believe, is going to pass all the tests. If he doesn't, this may be something that, you know, is going to erupt into some type of controversy or something like that. But what I think is Garcia is going to pass all the tests. He might do well in the fight. Even if he doesn't do all that well, the physical changes we'll see in him. I think Victor Conte is going to be like a Freddie Roach, a guy who's on call for some of these fighters to go out there and train and get some of this training, get some of that cutting edge stuff. Because Garcia is putting a lot into this. You know, Garcia spent a month there, and today, you know, which is a few days from fight day, people are saying Garcia looks like a legit 147-pounder. That's 12 pounds correctly added. You know, Garcia is a special athlete, according to Victor Conte. I saw an interview he did, I believe, with Elie Seckbach. And, you know, there he was talking about the way his breathing intakes and outputs, you know, CO2 and intakes the O2 and stuff. And just there are numbers associated with it. There's numbers that are through the ceiling, even compared to other elite athletes and stuff. So Victor Conte can walk the walk, talk the talk. He's a scientist, and you like to hear this stuff. You know, Mikey, gee, you know, I've got other world championship boxers. I've got, you know, history with Dan Marino, John Elway in football, you know, and all the baseball stuff. I'm a scientist. I'm telling you, your ability to exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide while you're doing this is pretty elite. You've got a good chance at adding some muscle and still being able to handle that. You know, I don't know how the talk goes, but again, science talk. Garcia, and here's the other part. Garcia comes from an elite camp. These guys are pros through and through. The family's there. It's a father. It's his brother who's the trainer. Brother is a former world champion. They've trained a lot of other world champions. And I've said this for years. Mikey Garcia is this camp's pet project. You know, he was something like 30-0 and retired for 2.5 years, you know, at about 26. What was he doing for those couple of years, you know? This was a guy who came back, fast-tracked his way. Now is a 4-division world champion. He had, I think, 2 division championships before his retirement. Now he's got 2 more afterwards. He came back in his prime. Now he's doing this, jumping up 2 weight classes. This is a guy who's trying to fulfill a legacy, trying to fulfill a plan, and it comes from a pedigree there. You know, Spence comes from his own pedigree. He's bringing his own stuff there, but these other guys are you're seeing the wheels turn on the Garcia plan here. If he takes out Spence and becomes a welterweight world champion, that opens up a lot of possibilities, including he could fight Pacquiao. You know, with an older fighter like that, you're going to have to give him a chance, and all of a sudden, you know, the scope and the landscape at 147 pounds has really changed. So, you know, Mikey Garcia with this training under Victor Conte, he was there for a month, and then he came back. The other thing I've noticed is now that it's fight week and you've got people actually having contact with Garcia again and stuff, there are people in the business who are starting to pick Garcia. Not a lot. You know, the people don't want to change their mind often enough in the boxing business, I see people. I'm going to stick with my gut feel. I'm going to stick with my original call. That comes up, but there are some boxing people, some press people that are starting to pick Garcia, and I think that part of it is they're starting to see how he looks at when he came in, and they're starting to get the real story behind the Victor Conte involvement, where he did up his training with Victor Conte. Now, the thing is I keep mentioning Victor Conte. Like I said, this guy is a scientist. He has done his time for the baseball scandal and things like that. And now he genuinely seems to be here to help. Now, shouldn't this be the way these things are done? Mikey Garcia comes in and pulls this off or does a reasonable job of trying. Isn't that the exact argument of how science could be used? He's being monitored by an elite doctor. He's being monitored by the authorities that test for illegal substances, wherever those may come up and stuff. And, doesn't that combination keep the fighter the most safe, but allow him to perform at an optimal level? Now, how does this – then there's the whole question of what's a fair playing field, Spence is a pretty elite athlete to me. Spence doesn't look like, he doesn't have nutrition and all that stuff lined up and taken care of on his end as well. But what if Conte's pushed the envelope and now there's another line? Is it an even playing field, So that's where that comes up. The other part that, nutrition is almost certainly involved in what's going on here. It means Mikey's changed his diet. Who knows what they're doing. But is there a chance that some of the substances or some of the supplements that might be getting done now could potentially be illegal in a couple of years? Could be something that after, they're in wider use or whatever, and there's some empirical data that someone says, we're going to put this one on a list of banned substances and you can't use it anymore. Now, and then how does that reflect on previous wins? Well, he was allowed to use it, but he's not allowed to use it. If he beats Errol Spence and something in his blood would have been illegal, you're not going to take away the win or anything like that, but it does become a question, right? Or does it? That's the point is this list of illegal is not really policing anything. It hasn't been for this whole time. I think Victor Conte is one of the guys that helped prove that under the Balco scam, because in baseball they were, if I understand, I'm not, the most detailed in the details of that, but I do know enough about it that my understanding is that they had the cream and the clear, which were, they were able to apply it without injecting and stuff like that. So they were able to say, hey, look, this is cutting edge science stuff. And by removing some of the chemical buildups, they were able to take out some supplements that would be found in drug testing, and they were able to get it, so that it wasn't located in the testing. Better testing comes up, the guys fail, and that's the chase. That's the what's going on right now. Not with Victor Conte, but Conte's trying to legitimize all that. Like I said, he's a scientist. He did his time. He's now got a legit facility. Mikey Garcia is making money for this fight. He's paying some of that to Victor Conte in the facility and stuff, so he's making money. I don't know what his relationship with VADA is, but I do know that he, like I stated, he's not accepting any fighters to his facility or anybody like that unless they're going through VADA testing. So that's interesting. He's learned to play by the rules, and now, if he's hiring himself out as a strength and conditioning coach, this guy, is going to be a player with some fighters now beyond Mikey Garcia, and that's what we're going to see here. So again, when on an international level, when the Russians go through what they did, which was get banned from the Olympics for wholesale fraud, where the government stepped in and altered medical facility staff and things like that to take tests and things, just crazy stuff that the Russians did. But the Russians do it similar to Victor Conte in philosophy, and the philosophy is that this is science and that you're preventing us from using an advantage, which is science. And when it's facilitated and looked at by a doctor, it should be okay. So now you've got advocates for the Russian way of doing things, which is, all right, if you want to have a list, have the list. But that list is, I don't think anybody's injecting mule hormone anymore because there's just so much advances and stuff like that. So keep your 1970s steroids on the list. Do away with the list and forget about it. No one's going to do mule hormone anymore. Anyway, the point is the list it starts outdated. It really gets woefully outdated. People are trying to add to. Who's trying to add to this list? What, where is that effort showing itself to be useful? You know what I mean? So wouldn't the effort be better placed in facilities and locations and scientists like Victor Conte to oversee the correct way to move between weight classes, to add muscle, to monitor, from a scientific perspective, everything, the intake of a fighter, even the air is something that they're obviously seeing how they're doing with, as I described, the mask and stuff like that. So it's a situation where I noticed, like I said, now Mikey shows up and people are there, and some people are saying, hey, Mikey's got a chance. And, you start to see it on social media, a couple people sticking their neck out and saying, and maybe changing their original call. And I'm speculating that some of the reason for it, and if Garcia gives a good performance, is going to be the nutritional aspect of it. And it's not even, this is supposed to be, we usually call out PEDs like they're a bad thing, performance enhancing drugs. But it's because they're on this list, the list of illegal stuff. Now, here's a legal performance enhancing situation. If you can hire Victor Conte and it brings you, the cutting edge of science, that's what Mikey Garcia signed up for. That's what to play this weekend, March 16th, at the Dallas Stadium as Garcia duels Errol Spence Jr. for the welterweight title. I don't think that's no small bones, because people are going to look at it, and if Garcia's performance, if he should win, if performance is credible, people are going to look at that, and they're going to want to know more about what's going on with his nutrition and things like that. He's going to get copied if he's at the cutting edge right now. Victor Conte is going to have more clients. And again, this is what we've been talking about. The CRP isn't the policing sort of stepping on each other's feet and not productive. Victor Conte may have found a productive way to be a scientist and involved in getting athletes the cutting edge of science in their preparation. Garcia is taking advantage of it this weekend. That's, I think, one of the things that not a lot of people are going to talk about. They're going to talk about, oh, Garcia, he failed, he shouldn't have done it, or Garcia did it, he did what Roberto Duran did in the past, he may be an all-time great and stuff like that. But I think that in the long run, the long effect of it may be that this type of nutrition and preparation that Victor Conte does for all your body intakes, including the air, including all the stuff that they're talking about there, is going to be the next step. That's going to be the next step. At any rate, I'm Miguel Iturrate for the CRP. I want to touch base with everybody, look at this situation. Mikey Garcia in Dallas for fight week already. The weigh-ins are going to be on Friday, where we really get to take a look at him. And I'm curious to see, because the president, Victor Conte, it's been known. He was there, he's had him as an advisor for a few years, and he was there in December, so there were people that were aware of it. But I don't think anybody's put two and two together and actually looked at the perhaps long-lasting effects after this fight on the boxing business. I'm Miguel Iturrate for the CRP. We've been taking a look at Victor Conte being in Mikey Garcia's corner as he challenges Errol Spence this Saturday, March 16th in Dallas.